The Organization of American States joins the worldwide condemnation against Ecuador after the violent assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito. Argentine trade unions, social and human rights organizations filed a criminal complaint against the government of Javier Milei for threats against the worker protests. And Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assured that Israel would be punished for its mistake after the terrorist attacks perpetrated by Israel in Syria. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. The Organization of American States joins the world condemnation received by Ecuador after the violent assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito. The Ecuadorian Foreign Ministry attended on Tuesday an extraordinary meeting held in Washington to address the diplomatic crisis with Mexico. In this context, the arguments of Daniel Noboa's government were not well received by the attendants. A dozen ambassadors took the floor and agreed on the obligation to respect international law and affirmed that there is no justification to break the unavailability of diplomatic headquarters. The issue will be discussed again in a new extraordinary session convened for April 10th at the request of Colombia and Bolivia. President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, received his Colombian counterpart, Gustavo Pedro, at the Miraflores Palace in the city of Caracas with the aim of strengthening bilateral relations. This meeting took place after the foreign ministers of both countries were in the border city of Cúcuta in the department of Norte de Santander on Monday in the framework of the follow-up mechanism of the Neighborhood and Integration Commission installed between the two nations in June of 2023. In this context, this is the fifth meeting between the presidents since Gustavo Pedro assumed power in August of 2022. Previously, the Venezuelan president assured that the Bolivarian Republic is committed to strengthening the relations of friendship and peace of both peoples, stating that Venezuela and Colombia have great joint objectives and no one will separate them.
Una buena conversación también en privado.
Conversation also in private.
Pasando revista
Going through
de cómo evoluciona, progresa
the evolution and the progress of the both countries' relationships and also the new opportunities that are open to us in every field, from transportation, trading, economy, energy, alternative energies, traditional energies, joint investments, and also the projects that must to continue the path of the gathering between Colombia and Venezuela.
And during the meeting held between both presidents, President of Colombia, Gustavo Pedro, said the following.
Political peace and military peace. Venezuela can help us a lot and have been doing it from years ago with the subject of the armed conflicts, successful in the Santos government, and that we have to build now in this government. And Colombia can help also to Venezuela in the political peace and the political stability that we've been setting to achieve in all South America. The political peace in Venezuela can be also the peace in the armed conflict in Colombia. So it's a ground to build in an urgent way. The political peace also has to do with the security. Speaking about security, an agreement around the dismantle of the arm ban, the possibility of not using cryptocurrency as a way to wash this currency, the joint struggle with these mobs of unlawful economy. So this is an area of the political peace that we're thinking that must to be given in Venezuela, a peace around the cease of the armed conflict in Colombia, and a peace that has to do with the security of the Cuban citizen.
In other news, Brazil's National Human Rights Council denounced an alarming upsurge of neo-Nazi domestic movements. The agency attached to the Ministry of Human Rights and Citizenship communicated with the United Nations to issue an alert. The affair is particularly serious in the state of Santa Catarina in the southern region of the country, where a large population of German origin is settled, and it is one of the areas with the highest number of neo-Nazi cells. The council reported hate speech, especially targeting women, black, and sex-diverse population. In Argentina, trade unions, together with social and human rights organizations, filed on Tuesday a criminal complaint against the government of Javier Milei for acts of intimidation. The leaders claim that the executive has imposed the presence of armed security personnel in the different workers' assemblies. According to the leadership of the Association of State Workers of Buenos Aires, these actions seek to intimidate the workers and keep them from mobilizing in favor of the 70,000 state employees who the national government has left on the street. Also in this context, on Monday, Pope Francis expressed his support for the workers of Argentine news agency TELAM, whose closure was announced by President Javier Milei. The highest authority of the Catholic Church expressed his concern for the situation of the news agency's workers and said that he prays for their improvement. On March 1st, the president ratified on national television his intention to close TELAM, proceeding to fence off its two headquarters in Buenos Aires, the country's capital. He also deployed police forces to prevent workers from entering. The closure of TELAM cannot be decided by the executive. Such a decision must be approved in the parliament, where there are still no proceedings in progress.
Sometimes it worries me a little, in communication, when I see a situation of insecurity. I think of the TELAM workers, for example, as if they do not see the future and do not know for sure how the road ahead will continue. I pray for the workers, who are in that nebulous situation.
Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, an appeals court judge on Monday rejected former President Donald Trump's attempt to pause a criminal trial in Manhattan and move it elsewhere. The judge, Lisbeth Gonzalez, issued her decision on Monday after hearing arguments from Trump's lawyers and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which accused Trump of falsifying records to cover up a sex scandal. For weeks, the former commander has been trying to delay the trial, the first for a former U.S. president and possibly the only one of the 4 criminal cases against him that will go to trial this year. Trump's attempt to move the case out of Manhattan was not the only delay strategy he used on Monday. In another proceeding, he indicated that he planned to file an unusual type of lawsuit against the judge leading the case, Juan M. Merchan. The director of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, Chapan, arrived in Cuba on Monday. His visit to the island seeks to strengthen mutual cooperation. The senior official had several meetings in Havana, the Cuban capital. One of them was held at the headquarters of the National Assembly of the People's Power. There, the diplomat spoke with the vice president of the legislative body, Ana María Machado, and the director of the Humanitarian Federation took the opportunity to highlight the values of Cuban solidarity with all the peoples of the world, regardless of the conditions imposed by the U.S. blockade, especially in the sector of public health. During the visit to the legislative headquarters, Chapan assured that it is important to improve the solidarity strategy.
One of the first points is to make aid much faster and to be able to position aid in a much closer place so that it can be delivered faster, just before the crisis starts.
On Wednesday, during the Eid al-Fitr ceremony, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assured that Israel would be punished for its mistake. Khamenei referred to the Iranian officers and workers killed in terrorist attacks perpetrated by Israel in Syria. He recalled that the Persian embassies and consulates are Iranian territory wherever they are. He also highlighted the murderous campaign that has claimed more than 33,000 lives in Gaza, reiterating that Israel and its Western allies should be punished in an exemplary manner. In the same vein, hours earlier, the commander of the Iranian naval force, alAdha Tansiri, called for a coalition of Muslim armies against Israel. The Eid al-Fitr marks the farewell of holy month of Ramadan and is celebrated among parties and family reunions. But for the Palestinians, the Eid is different. Let's take a look at the details with our correspondent, Noor Harasin.
Normally, the first day of Eid al-Fitr here in Gaza would be a totally different story. Palestinians would be out in the streets celebrating, families gathering, visiting each other, having these food feasts and distributing chocolates and sweets in their homes and in the neighborhoods. However, this is one sad Eid al-Fitr day on the Palestinians here on the ground in Gaza. Unfortunately, the only thing that Palestinians managed to do today is to mourn their loved ones and visit them in the graves. This Eid al-Fitr is not the first Eid where Palestinians are under Israeli offensive. It happened before 3 years ago, and this happens while Israel continues targeting and attacking, bombing places in northern Gaza, in middle Gaza, and also in southern Gaza. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, the number of people who were killed in Gaza since the 7th of October is now at 33,200 people. Hamas from its side had a statement talking about it praising the Egyptian and the Qatari efforts in these negotiations between Hamas and Israel, but they said that the Israeli position is stubborn. They also said that the Israeli side is not accepting the condition of Palestinians going back to northern Gaza, and this is one condition where it is not only Hamas wanted, but also all of the people here in the ground, the displaced people. The only hope, the only wish that they hope for in this Eid is to go back to northern Gaza. Noor Harasin, teleSUR, Gaza.
And we stay on topic as Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary of the United Nations Organization, stated that the international community has lost its moral compass in Gaza, where Israel has already killed near 15,000 children. Mohammed stated that this Tuesday at a press conference at the organization's headquarters in New York. She assured that it is urgent to do something immediately, although she recognizes that they are arriving late. All UN agencies and mechanisms identify the urgent need for a ceasefire. Still, this is not coming. While the White House and Tel Aviv continue to play with double talk, hundreds continue to be killed and mutilated in real time in front of the world, or subjected to a famine never seen before in child populations. And also in Palestine, the Civil Defense Service recovered 409 corpses inside the Al-Shifa hospital after Israel withdrew from the medical complex and its surroundings. In a statement, the Gazan Civil Defense informed that they continue with the debris removal works alongside the governmental entities and international institutions. At once, they urged the international community and the senior authorities to support with the supply of equipment and machinery for digging works in order to speed up the extraction of the corpses under the infrastructure smashed up after the bombings. Meanwhile, Palestinian citizens denounced the kidnapping of children by the Israeli troops after their withdrawal, in addition to the death toll triggered by the military operation. And in this context, the government of Turkey imposed restrictions on exports to Israel until a ceasefire is consolidated in the Gaza Strip. According to the government authorities, the decision covers groups of products such as steel, fertilizers, jet fuels, among others. The measure came into force on Tuesday and will remain in force until Israel declares an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and allows sufficient and uninterrupted humanitarian aid to the Strip. This is the first significant measure by Ankara against Israel after 7 months of its genocidal operation against the Palestinian civilian population, a decision that, according to the Israel regime, will not be unchallenged. And we have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The European Union's decisive attempt to reform its immigration and asylum policy faces a close vote in the Parliament. This comprehensive overhaul aims to turn the page on nearly 10 years of isolated reactions and instead establish a common and predictable standards for managing the reception and relocation of asylum seekers. The measure has been strongly criticized by human rights advocates, and 161 civil society organizations have called on the MEPs to reject it. The left, with 37 MEPs, and the Greens, with 72 MEPs, opposed the reform, arguing that the strict provisions promoted by the member states will degrade the quality of the asylum process and fuel violations of fundamental rights. Also, the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, affirmed that the possibility of a high-intensity conventional war in Europe is no longer a fantasy. The head of European diplomacy called on Tuesday for the creation of a European financial mechanism dedicated to security and defense, as he considers that the war is on the horizon. Several European officials have also cited an increased military threat in recent months, as the world is moving from a post-war to a pre-war state. For his part, Borrell insisted that increasing competition between the great powers, high-intensity conflict between states, militarization of economic dependencies, and disinformation are part of the European reality. We move on to other news. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, violence by armed gangs caused a quarter of the population to face critical levels of hunger, worsening the humanitarian crisis in the country. International organizations warn about the number of deaths and the continuous clashes between armed groups and the army in the region. More than 120 armed groups are fighting for control of the land, resulting in some 230,000 people being displaced and deprived of access to food, health services, and education. As a result of this violence, many Congolese families are crowded into refugee camps with food shortages and poor sanitation devices. And in France, the Interior Minister stated that security will be considerably reinforced at Wednesday's Champions League match in the French capital between Paris Saint-Germain and Barcelona after a threat from the Islamic State group. In response to the threat, authorities in several cities where the first leg matches of Champions League will be played announced that they will reinforce security at the venues to ensure that both clubs and fans are safe during the games. In this sense, the Interior Minister of France, Gerald Darmanin, stated that as far as the party in the Greater Paris area is concerned, the Prefect of Police has considerably reinforced security, and the DGSI, the French intelligence agency, is working particularly hard without going into details to provide preventive intelligence if necessary. Darmanin also mentioned that so far no details are known or which location might be particularly affected, nor under what conditions. In this sense, Paris Saint-Germain coach Luis Enrique, on the Islamic group's threat to the first leg of the Champions League quarterfinals, stated that everyone is worried about the situation. However, he is confident that everything will be solved.
Who in this room is not worried? Who in these cities, who in these threatened countries, is not worried about this? I hope that this is something that can be contained and that it's just a threat, that nothing disastrous happens. Of course, it's worrying.
Muslims celebrate the end of Ramadan on the eve of Eid al-Fitr, lining the streets of Indonesia capital's Jakarta to bang on drums and chant in a tradition called takbiran, where followers of Islam express joy after completing one full month of fasting. On motorcycles, cars, buses, planes, or by boat, millions of Indonesians have traveled to their hometowns in an annual exodus for the Eid holiday that begins in the country on Wednesday. Major seaports and toll roads have been packed in recent days, while airports and bus terminals were also full of travelers looking forward to reuniting with their families. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.